Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Lifting. This episode is being recorded on Krampusnacht, believe it or not, 12/5/24. I'm here with Ryan again, and we are doing a show on the some of the dragon and creature species of Dungeons and Dragons. And this is going to be our annual Christmas episode. You're going to see other Christmas episodes as well. You're going to see Conspiracy Sector and the like as well, along with GIC as well. So, Ryan, actually, first I got to open this circle to true benevolence right now within this moment in time. True benevolence with no conflicting agendas at this moment in time. So, thank you. All right, Ryan, take it away.
All right, guys, welcome to the show. Today we're going to be talking about dragons, specifically the lore of dragons that comes from Dungeons and Dragons, the game, for tabletop as well as games like Baldur's Gate and Neverwinter Nights. Basically, anything that takes place within like the D&D monicum. Um, yeah, so dragons and Dungeons and Dragons are a bit more in depth than just like your basic dragon lore, and has to go into like elemental effects and things like that, and different types of dragons, because there's different species of dragons. There's even two different whole like families of dragons, and so we're gonna get right into it, starting with some just classic Dungeons and Dragons art of dragons. Here we have a group of adventurers. Looks like a barbarian, probably a paladin or a fighter, and a wizard or a sorcerer fighting a red dragon. And here we have a ranger and a lady who I can't make out because she's kind of off screen there fighting a blue dragon. But these are some of the dragons of D&D, and this will kind of give an idea of what some of them look like while we get into it. So there's two families of dragons, and on this picture right here, we can see the different groups by the row they're in. So there's chromatic dragons, which are based on the color, and then there's metallic dragons that are named after types of metals. Generally speaking, a good chromatic dragons tend to be evil, and metallic dragons tend to be neutral or good. That's not always the case, but it's normally the case. So we're just going to go through the chromatic dragons first because they're kind of the more famous enemy dragons that you'll run into. And we're going to start with the red dragon because they're sort of the famous big bad evil dragon that you might face like deep into a campaign. And they're total show-offs, have a temper, won't let others use their stuff, talks about themselves in the third person a lot. But also, red dragons, they're the most avaristic of dragons. Red dragons constantly seek to expand their hordes and power. In so much, in fact, that they're always looking for a good, like to supplant other red dragons in the hierarchy of dragons.
Hmm.
Red dragons.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't mean to interrupt, but that's interesting. I have encountered red dragons before that actually have that mentality. So that's
Yeah, think Smaug from The Hobbit as like a good red dragon, uh, and even amongst the Dungeons and Dragons red dragons, Smaug would probably be fairly average.
Yeah, that's exactly. I've seen some of them. I saw a red dragon one time that was actually a leader amongst the others, but also he hoarded resources. So this actually makes a lot of sense. So
Yeah, red dragons are always looking to expand their wealth and power. They have the largest wings of any chromatic dragon, with a blue-black tint along the trailing edge that resembles a metal scorched by fire. Their scales range from bright crimson to dark red of a dying fire, and their profile is defined by swept-back horns and a frilly spine. Their nostrils perpetually leak thick black smoke, and their eyes flash with fire when angered.
hmm.
Red dragons are fiercely territorial. Red dragons favor arid, desolate badlands and mountainous terrain with plenty of high vantage points from which they can survey the world around them. In addition to the usual mixture of claws and bites, red dragons can belch forth a torrent of raging fire, smash enemies with their tails, or knock down every nearby foe with a flap of its powerful wings. an attack that is almost like a cyclone when you're hit by it. Older red dragons are nightmarish to behold, and as such can terrify even the most stalwart dragon slayer with their frightening presence.
Hmm.
Within their lairs, they can also create high level geothermal activity, which is further intensified by their presence. The dragon can call forth gouts of lava, volcanic gases, or cause the very ground to break apart with the stamp of its clawed foot. So thieves or anyone trying to steal from a red dragon is going to have a very hard time. Also, because red dragons meticulously go over every little bit of thing in their lair, and if you steal successfully from one, that's just the challenge of getting away with it. It will then have a personal vendetta against you and hunt you down until it can find the object you took.
Oh, all right. That.
Red dragon. Red dragons are also impulsive and arrogant, prone to flying uh, into destructive rages that can level entire empires in response to the smallest of slights. Their covetous nature means red dragons know the identity and location of every piece of treasure in its hoard, and the theft, even the smallest gold coin or magic ring, can lead to the total destruction of every town within 100 leagues. They make their lairs deep in mountainous caves or within the mouths of active volcanoes and often surround themselves with cowering servants to do their biddings and fawn over them until the dragon becomes hungry.
Hmm. Uh, that's yeah. This is interesting. This is exact behaviors that I didn't know about the D&D list at all. The behavioral types and the red dragon. I there was one I've seen that's like fire, like you were saying, and then there was one that that was like almost like a blood red, and both of them seem to have the same ambitions, the same attitude. And the first one I actually saw was disguising himself as a demon at one point. I'm not going to utter the name of the demon, but this was a famous one in the paranormal circles. And what he was trying to do was trying to goat the uh, paranormal people into. I'm trying to think what he was actually trying to do. He's trying to goat them into gaining resources from them or getting his voice out there in some form or fashion through their equipment and through their stuff. So, and get his form out there. So, like basically saying he was in control of that particular territory. So, yeah, and I saw him then eventually sitting on their version of his version of like almost like a throne, but it was like this melted gold looking thing. And his ambitions were to basically take territory away from Enki, Enlil, and Anu. So I was like, okay, basically for things that happened during the Atlantean period, I can actually kind of understand that part because that's when um, some of the dragons went extinct because of the war between Atlantis and Lemuria. So it's like I get that part, but their attitude is exactly how this described.
We
This,
will come into a dragon later on that has some demonic tendencies.
mm,
Uh, in fact, it resides in Avernus, the first layer of the Hells in D&D.
oh, okay,
But that is for later in the video
okay,
because that is one of the dragon gods.
all right.
Um, Alternatively, red dragons are also known to serve the Githyanki. We talked about the Githyanki a little bit in the Baldur's Gate episode. They kind of come from outside of the prime material plane, but they will go there to raise their young, but then they'll go back into the astral plane where they don't age. Um, and they're a breakaway civilization. They broke away from the Illithid Empire in a revolt because they were slave race at one point, and now they fight the Illithids wherever they can. But the Red Dragons, under their god, who we will talk about soon, made a deal with Gith, the leader of that rebellion in the far past, and there is that god basically made it so certain red dragon babies would be given to the Githyanki as so that they could become dragon riders, and those red dragons are kind of completely under the control of the Gith instead of having their own will and stuff. Okay, so next we're going to talk about black dragons. Black dragons are evil-tempered and cruel, even for chromatic dragons. Black dragons loathe the success of the lesser races. So most dragons in D&D view every other race as beneath them. regardless of if they're good or bad. They just view them as like lesser, uh, and they often conspire to bring humanoid kingdoms to ruin before nesting among the crumbling debris of once prosperous civilizations. Basically, they're massive dicks.
Hmm.
Uh, they are antisocial. They generally have poor hygiene. They enjoy watching others fall, and they always seem like they're compensating for something.
Hmm.
They're not as cool in the eyes, or as dangerous or grand in the eyes of everybody else as red dragons are. Physical characteristics. Their scales range from glossy black to like a dull, well camouflaged charcoal, and shades of slightly darker black. Black dragons have curving, segmented horns, deep socketed eyes, and a broad nasal opening, which makes their features strongly resemble a skull. You can see a black dragon right here.
Mhm. Yeah, black dragons. There was one time where I thought I was, a couple of times where I thought I was dealing with a Draco. And in this case, this one dragon kept correcting me, going, "No, I'm not a Draco." So they will set up really weird. You think Draco are bad when they set up elaborate narratives in your head. A dragon like a black one like that, like what you described, will set up an entire like obstacle course of just they'll make you think you're on some kind of like spiritual quest type test or something, and they're actually just fucking with you. So it's I actually encountered this earlier in life, and this is another one that matches perfectly around the time I found about the red ones too, where I was in this like almost like this lava pit like setting that was around a pyramid, and he wanted me to in this vision sequence jump through this obstacle course. He said if basically if I failed it, he was going to eat me and all this other stuff. So nothing ever came of it. There was another black one that was putting me through another obstacle course. They love the obstacle course shit. So it's they love to fuck with people that way. But this is actually accurate, and also here in Virginia, I ran across something large I thought was a Draco, and I thought it was also later on I thought it was Burgess, but he's like a purpley color, so I didn't know who it was, and he was actually really mean. He was a dick, but he didn't really do any harm. So he was just being an ass. So this is actually accurate to also that picture as well, with the horns that come out of the. I see that like almost that horn that's coming out of the side of the face too. I've seen them with the horns that wrap around the sides of the face too. So that's I've seen a couple dragon types that are like that, but mainly the black. So D&D actually got it right again. This is actually interesting personality traits that are actually correct for some of them. There are some that are more susceptible than others to also AI intrusions. I think some of the more tannish, like sand-colored ones are, but the black one and the red ones being the personality types that you've talked about, yeah, that's actually true to what I've observed.
Also, this what you just said is very similar. So their environments, black dragons like swamps and ruins, basically, as where they
Hmm.
live. Ideally, a ruin in a swamp.
Hmm.
And their lair actions, they turn already unpleasant swamps into nightmarish morasses of biting insects, impassable mudflats, and magical darknesses,
Yep.
which the dragon can command to disorient and wear down its foes, meaning to find the actual dragon's home is nearly impossible. If you ever find yourself in a black dragon swamp, just run. These are easily the most brutal and cruel of all true dragons and take great pleasure in witnessing or directly causing the failure of humanoids. Black dragons amass vast hordes of antiques, grim souvenirs plundered from the many empires they have laid waste to, and it's common enough to find artifacts of great power amongst their priceless collections of jewelry and gems. You smell a black dragon's lair before you see it, nestled in the foetid heart of a swampy home. The air hangs thick with the stench of rotting vegetation, and the water runs stagnant with the decomposing corpses of its prey, which the dragon keeps half submerged in blackish fluid to augment the fermentation process. Their attacks, amongst the obvious physical ones you'd already run into, include A line of corrosive acid from their mouths, capable of melting the strongest stones or the hardiest adventurer in a puddle of bubbling slag.
Okay. Yeah, so that's interesting. It's exactly like what I saw in the past. Some of these black dragons were actually doing. Now, am I opposed to the fact that some people might have generated tulpas like this too, and other beings have taken on also some of what people have come up with? Yes, but I believe it was the other way around, where it was just disclosed into the media itself. So I'm more in that camp because it's too detailed and it's too exact. So I'm more in that camp. And yeah, I would see them in ruins, swamps, lava flows, pyramids, like Mayan, like citadels or ziggurat type stuff. I saw them in all that kind of stuff. Like say like Non Madal is in Micronesia. I saw them in places like that. I saw them in Angkor Wat type of situation. I've seen that kind of thing. So I thought that it's very interesting that that's also a dead-on match for their behavior of what I've observed.
Okay, now we're going to move down to the blue dragons. You can see the blue dragon here with sort of the electricity off its main nasal spike.
Hmm.
And so, personality of blue dragons, they're vain, territorial, and opportunistic. Blue dragons will not stand for any remarkance or insinuation that they are weak or inferior. They're hot, and they know it, basically. Uh, Oversensitive to criticism, love being in charge, and has expensive tastes, is what this little like funny chart says. Now, physical characteristics. Iridescent blue scales that range from bright azure to the deepest indigos, polished to a mirror finish by the desert sands. Blue dragons have dramatically frilled ears, which can seal completely out to block out sand, and a huge jagged horn, which helps them barrel through the dunes. Desert dwellers or islands. They like sandy environments. Blue dragons are opportunistic hunters that prey upon nomad merchants, caravans, or ships, using their flight and lightning breath to patiently pick off their foes one by one. The blue dragon is wreathed in a cloak of crackling static electricity, which it can concentrate in its jaws to unleash in a searing line of raw lightning. Within their lairs, it's made of excavated sand tunnels, sometimes partially turned into crystal or glass by its lightning breath. When threatened, the blue dragon can collapse part of its lair, burning its enemies alive. If they ever get close, that is, for the blue dragon's presence surrounds its lair in miles upon miles of raging thunderstorms. The rasp of sand against scales creates a corona of static electricity around the blue dragon, which it can coalesce into powerful lightning attacks. It also uses its electric breath to crystallize sand into glass, sculpting its vast subterranean layers for itself, from which it flies around the desert to the most verdant lands in search of prey. Definitively one of the most interesting dragons in Dungeons and Dragons. The blue dragon is an elemental force, raising thunderstorms and rising sands to swallow entire caravans whole, after which it descends from the endless blue sky to feast. Blue dragons also can be found in the dry steppes and along rocky coasts, but they're most at home in the deepest of deserts, where they surround their lairs with all manner of vile beasts like giant scorpions, dust devils, and ankh eggs, which are just different beasts in D&D. Especially powerful blue dragons covet the servitude of others, as well as they like to patronize wizards, bards, and genies, because they like to be in charge and helping out a something that could be a threat to them, but giving that thing power so that it doesn't bother them is easier than having to kill it. Uh, they're also quite vain, though, so usually that means that they will get turned on.
Hmm. Oh, that's interesting. I have seen dragon types that prefer deserts and islands, like tropical environments. Now, I've seen blue and purple dragons before. Like I saw one we used to interact with called Lentazar. I found out the one we were seeing was from a spirit from the past time frame, though, where she was more of an amethyst color, kind of like this is. It's like this. She was like this, but with that, I've seen also blue ones that actually invade dreams before. They will literally. I've seen blue dragons be like Dreamtime Invader or messing with people in some form or fashion. But I seen a couple involved with desert and like desert island types. Yeah, I have. There have been a couple other color variations in there, like green and yellow, that have been in that as well. But I have seen blue involved in that. Have I seen a horn on their in the middle of their head before with an electricity? No, but I have seen that they have like generated an electric field and shot like electricity at people. Do dragons have the ability to turn sand into glass? Yeah, they do. I've actually seen that. I think all variations have that ability, but with the vain attitude and them getting turned on by doing stuff like that. Have I seen that attitude with dragons? Yes. Have I seen it mainly in blue ones? I have seen it in blue ones, but have I seen it in a couple of the other purple variations too? Like you said, it goes into the indigo variations. So have I seen this? Yeah, there is some similarities there to some that I have seen, but I have not seen any with the horn with the electrical like zap, like a taser on the front. No, I haven't. I haven't seen that particular one or a cattle prod type of thing. But have I seen electrically based dragons? Yes. Have I seen like energetic based ones that can morph and stuff like that? Yes. Like ones that can morph into human form? Yes. But believe it or not, most of the electrical based looking ones that I have seen have been blue. So that actually does fit.
Green dragons, smooth operators, suave and charming. Even your girlfriend is into him. Is always up to something.
Hmm. That's interesting.
Personality, cunning and treacherous, and thirsty for both power and gold in equal measures. Green dragons start out life the color of emeralds and new leaves, but darken over the centuries until they're virtually indistinguishable from the forests they call home. They also have the longest legs and necks of any dragon, allowing them to move unhindered through thick undergrowth and can scan their surroundings with ease. Green dragons make their homes in deep forest, which grow more wild, choked with thorny vegetation and sickly yellow fogs with their continued presence. Attacks. Clouds of poisonous fumes belch forth from the green dragon's mouth, searing the lungs and addling the minds of its victims. Within their lairs, green dragons usually choose a cave or grotto at the heart of a deep forest, which it surrounds with a labyrinth of razor-sharp thorns and vines. These vines can spring to life at the dragon's command, snaring intruders for the monster to devour at its leisure. Green dragons are the most manipulative and two-faced of all dragons. Their lust for treasure is unmatched, even eclipsed in some cases by their craving for power over other races of other such dragons. Such green dragons are schemers and tricksters, often plotting the corruption of nearby civilizations. They pour honeyed words into the ears of the weak or foolish, turning them against their friends and loved ones, pawns in a cruel, inhumane game.
Hmm.
Green dragons enslave the minds of people all over and basically will create plots to break down the goings on of civilization. Players only figured out what was actually going on normally when they notice like how someone's under the effects of mind control. Green dragons, in fact, will oftentimes use the higher level dragons in D&D. All of them have the ability to shapeshift into a humanoid, and they can go in and make deals. In some cases, very powerful dragons can even change what they look like to other dragon types. And there's one famous dragon in D&D, and she lives near Neverwinter. She was able to convince a royal family that they wanted that there was a dragon out in the road killing off other people. So she said that it was a blue dragon. They went and killed a blue. They killed another dragon, claimed the reward, but it was actually her reward that she would put on her own head. Then came and destroyed the entire family and left. This same dragon likes to have attractive males naked as servants within her lair.
Hmm.
Yeah, so that's some like little green dragon lore I know about specifically one dragon from D&D whose name I can't remember at the moment.
That's actually interesting. Yeah, I know that some can shapeshift to a human form. I've seen that before, and also I mean, there is the Draco that actually will get people lusting after money, gold, all this other stuff. Like in Superstition Mountains there in Arizona. People have disappeared up there because of looking for that, and some have just gotten lost. But other ones, they found these fang holes in the backs of two skeletons there that were parched white, and that was Draco, feeding their young there, and that was an old Lemurian site that got taken over by the enemy back in the Lemurian Atlantean War period. But with this, some people get drawn out there and then they die. It's very similar, but I have actually heard of. No, I'm actually being corrected. There are dragon species that will do this exact thing, like draw people in, kind of like the one you mentioned was almost like a mix between kind of like poison ivy and a dragon, kind of. They're telling me that there are. I'm being told that there are dragon females that will do exactly like that character does. Like they'll literally walk into a public place and communicate with people, and they will either project a version of a human version of themselves that they can't shift. But I keep seeing in my head though, like this green dragon shifting into a woman and just walking into a tavern. So it's like this. This is it's been going on for centuries. So this is a more advanced type of mind control type dragon that can is actually the dragons that are with me. There's more than one, obviously. Are basically transmitting to me that this is actually one of the more dangerous types because they, like you said, they can trick other dragons. The other ones that are bloviating, like the red ones kind of bloviate and the black ones bloviate, but they're saying this one, bloviating meaning like braggart, this particular one, I'm getting a really creepy vibe from. I have not. I've seen them in dream sequences. I've seen them in vision sequences before. I've not encountered a green dragon from what I understand it, but this actually fits from what I've seen in other scenarios of what other beings have told me. So that's actually quite interesting. The scene I keep seeing over and over in my head is in like an enchanted like forest type of setting where somebody wanders in there and it's like a witch living in the forest and then the dragon just eats the person. So it's like or enslaves them. So this is where they draw them in for food. Some will just claim the space, like Burgess, like he said in the episode before about the Baldur's Gate 3, where he said some of them just claim the space and just eat the things that are around. I'm being told that the green ones will stay in wooded areas and do kind of the same thing. There'll be a being that lures somebody into a wooded area and just eats them. So that's where they're saying some of the missing people went over the centuries. And they'll trick others into getting rid of their rivals, like what you were saying. So this is and gaining territory. So that's actually interesting. The vibe I'm getting off of it is creepy, but it feels familiar to me. So that's actually quite interesting.
White dragons are next. They're bestial, vicious, and greedy. White dragons are the most animalistic of dragons and live for the thrill of the hunt and the pleasure of the kill. They're the smallest of the dragons. For what it's worth, white dragons blend into their Arctic habitats with the subtlety of a polar bear, bursting from the snow with frilly spines erect and eyes filled with a feral hatred. Over time, their pure white sheen fades to mottled blues and grays, like an iceberg beneath the Arctic of oceans. White dragons are the alpha predators of snowy tundra environments, ice-capped mountains, and deep frozen ice fields. White dragons can emit a torrent of rolling frost and ice, freezing their enemies' corpses to be defrosted later in the tepid stew of their stomach juices. Older white dragons can command the winter snows themselves, and those who set foot in their lands find themselves assaulted by bitter winds, surrounded by vortexes of frozen sleet and crushed beneath the tumbling blocks of ice and stone. White dragons are often underestimated, smaller, more stupid, and even less fond company than other chromatic dragons. The white dragon is closer to a beast than any of its kin. However, in addition to being perfectly adapted to its hostile environment, the white dragon possesses an incredible memory, holding on to grudges that can last for centuries as it grows in size and plots its revenge. White dragons love ice, and therefore prize treasure that resembles it like diamonds, although they will also hoard walrus tusks, figureheads from ships, furs, and the frozen corpses of powerful enemies the dragon has slain, which it leaves dotted around at the mouth of its lair as a warning to anyone foolish enough to step inside.
Yeah, you immediately you think White Draco, like Alpha Draco, but uh, from some of the dragons that are around me at the moment, I said that they're like, "Mm-mm-mm, no, no. This is the history might say that certain things are the same, like Draco being the root word for a dragon, but no, this is even though it's all over the place. There's the ice and snow thing actually does fit. I have personally have not encountered an actual white dragon. I've seen white Draco before, the upright, larger 15-foot tall ones of that, which are considered to be the alphas, even though the aquatic Draco tend to bury them as far as abilities go. I'm not giving them any grace, but I'm just saying there's a class system here, or caste system. But with although there is with dragons too, okay. I think that they're reacting like there aren't any left of the white ones. They're acting like there's either very few or there's already left. But I personally haven't encountered this one. It feels right to me, so I have to go off feeling for this one. But this basically how they are transmitting this to me is that the information is pretty much correct. They have the ability to cause snowstorms and stuff like that. But I don't. I think so. I think this one might be extinct. We can always ask that later on. But we're pretty close to it. But that's the feelings I'm getting. Sometimes you don't know what time frame you're accessing when you're picking up on something because of all the different Earth ages. But this feels accurate to me.
Next, we're gonna move down into the metallic dragons, and so the metallic dragons. I mean, not the chromatic. Named after metals. Unlike their chromatic cousins, metallic dragons tend to be good or neutral end of the alignment chart. While they can still be prone to arrogance or fits of pique, their personalities skew more towards curiosity, and they often take genuine delight in interacting with the humanoid races. They often do this through their ability to shapeshift into more innocuous forms, traveling the lands, interacting with humanoids and human races, and acting as if everything from a magical prankster to something more like a guardian angel. Some metallic dragons strike up multi-generational friendships with a single humanoid family, and others may even serve as staunch allies in the war against evil, especially when worshippers of the demonic dragon queen Tiamat, who we'll talk about later, are involved. Metallic dragons tend to worship the minor god Bahamut, the platinum dragon, who either dwells on the celestial plane or wanders the world disguised as a kindly sage, accompanied by seven golden canaries, which are secretly seven ancient golden dragons in disguise, and a potent reminder of murder hopo players not to pick on random old men who collect exotic birds.
Hmm.
Basically, chromatic dragons are the good dragons. They like talking to people. They like hanging out with people. They're cool guys as dragons go.
Hmm.
We're going to start with the brass dragon. On our little fun thing, they love good chinwag, tell long stories, and forget what they're about. Has probably been working on novels for years and pretends to be older than they actually are.
Hmm.
So, gangrenous and generous and keen conversationalists, fond of philosophical discourse and filthy jokes in equal measure. A brass dragon's face is framed by a thick ridge of bone and a row of frilly spines trailing down the length of its neck. Their scales change over time from a mottled brown to a lustrous burnished brass. Brass dragons are most at home in dry, sunny climates. In addition to its physical attacks and fiery breath, a brass dragon can also exhale a cloud of sleeping gas. A brass dragon can conjure up gusts of wind and torrents of swirling sand to obscure itself from an enemy's view. It also fills the area surrounding its lair with illusionary monsters to deter intruders and lays false paths that double back from its lair and arrive at nearby water sources. Because they're not trying to kill, they just don't want to be disturbed. Brass dragons, above all else, love conversation. Even the treasure most prized by a brass dragon would be happily traded in if they can get a good talk with a or a story. Brass dragons, above all else, love conversation. If brass dragons have one weakness, it's that they're overly trusting of anyone who genuinely enjoys a good conversation and may be blinded to an otherwise untrustworthy individual who just happened to it just happened to like talking to. They tend to be smart enough to recognize attempts at manipulation, but are more likely to throw themselves into a battle of deception than resort to a blast of fire.
Hmm. That's interesting because yeah, I've run into ones that they like to talk a long time, and they generally are the color between that and that copperish yellowy color. Sometimes the scales are intermixed, but I've run across ones also like what you said, the illusion where they may not want to hurt somebody, but they redirect them around to a water source or out of away from where they are. There are perception fields out there, like you see that around places like Shasta and stuff like that, where some groups will put up a perception filter and you walk into it and it's all of a sudden automatically you're walking out of it. So some dragons will do that with mental capability or make false monsters. I've seen abilities. I've seen some beings have the ability to generate false monsters. That's just the psionic field right there. You can do that with, you make weapons, you can make constructs, monsters, bad guys, good guys. So yeah, there are some that they just love to talk. Like in Skyrim, you even heard like some dragons like Parthenyx said he just wants to keep talking. You're humoring me with speech kind of thing. So they that he's kind of close to that coloring, but not quite brass, but more tan. But I have seen that before as well with people. There's even stories where some people have gone into a cave area and then all of a sudden they're back out. And I'm thinking they're running into a situation like that where there's just some beings or a Garthan tribe or something where they're redirecting them out in a similar fashion. But yeah, this looks familiar to me. That and the copper one looks familiar to me as well.
Yeah, we're going to do the bronze dragon next.
Run, okay.
So they're always up for a good scrap, a civil rights activist. They quickly stand up for their friends, and they have no chill. Uh, Personality, curious and brave. Bronze dragons enjoy watching humanoids go about their business, usually hidden in polymorphed forms, but feel honor bound to intervene if they witness great evils. Bronze dragons are distinguished by a ribbed and fluted crest above their head, as well as their webbed feet and their greenish tinted wing tips. As the dragon ages, its pupils fade away, leaving its eyes only two glowing green orbs. Bronze dragons favor coastal environments and are just as home in the water as they are on land or in the air. In addition to their physical armaments and lightning breath weapon, bronze dragons will have a less lethal repulsion breath, which can hurl enemies or unwanted enemies away at it from it at great speeds. Within their lairs, bronze dragons usually like coastal caves, sometimes nesting in the wreck of a ship it has painstakingly recovered from the sea. It exerts almost total control over the weather in the surrounding area and is capable of subjecting uninvited guests to a peal of deafening thunder at painfully close quarters. Bronze dragons are both curious and fearsome. Typically, they enjoy leaving their coastal lairs to disguise themselves as dolphins or albatrosses, to swim or fly alongside fishing boats and observe the sailors at work. If a bronze dragon sees a ship laden with cargo that it desires, it may suddenly revert to its true form and bargain with the presumably now terrified captain for some of the treasure. Bronze dragons are also brave, with a keen eye for injustice. Sometimes, when evil, especially worshippers of Tiamat, rear their ugly head, bronze dragons will forsake their detached neutrality to join the side it perceives to be the right, and make up for a staunch and powerful ally in battle. The lucky adventurer may find one of its traveling companions to actually be a bronze dragon wanting to see the world.
Hmm. It's interesting you say that as you were talking. I'm seeing in my head where I'm like, I was standing by this waterway and there's trees all around and everything. I was firing an energy weapon at somebody, and I see this bronze-headed dragon turn and look at me, turn from like a human form and look at me with the same head that's right there in the picture. It said, human, I can actually fight my own battles. Thank you. And that's what I heard in my head. So that somebody was showing me an example of like a imprinted memory or something, probably from my own past. They keep saying it's from my own history, but it's like, but I kept seeing this person who was a traveling companion and morphing into a bronze-headed dragon. That's actually quite interesting. And while you were saying around boats, I was seeing one like pull up like next to a boat where all the people were scared and it was just wanting to bargain for the goods. Yeah, so that's actually quite interesting. I'm not sure how far back I'm seeing this, but I'm basically being told that that's actually a true thing too, where there were these different types that had the different personality, different dragon types had the different personality types, and this one was like almost like the merchant or the adventurer, like what that says. So I find that quite interesting. And they're saying most of them would hang back, but this one was more adventurous, even post Atlantean Lemurian conflict, where the Orions were out in force. So this one was actually more adventurous, that wanted to get out and see things, even amidst wanted to see the world for what it had turned into, and see what people remembered, what they forgot, things of that nature. And I'm being told that these are still around. Uh, you wouldn't know it if you ran into one, though, kind of thing. Kind of like with mer people or myrmidon, they can actually morph and come on land, kind of thing. It's kind of a similar premise. That's very similar to the picture they're saying.
Copper dragons. Memes are on point. Has the best banter. Devises elaborate and dangerous pranks. The heaviest drinkers.
Hmm.
Personality. Playful pranksters, jokesters, and riddle lovers. Copper dragons are some of the most gregarious and even-tempered of all dragons. Although their tendency to covet gold can bring out a decisively mean streak. Physical characteristics. A copper dragon's segmented horns and backward sweeping cheek frills give it a pensive, quizzical look. They're become increasingly oxidized over the centuries, with ancient copper dragons being almost completely green with glowing turquoise eyes. Copper dragons make their homes in rocky uplands and hilly areas, dwelling in naturally occurring caves with sandy floors and many false walls behind which it can hide its treasures. In addition, its claws, bites, and tail, and corrosive acidic breath, copper dragons can emit a wave of gas which can reduce its enemy's movement, basically pinning them in place. Within its lair, a copper dragon can turn solid earth into cloying, impassable mud or cause stone spikes to burst from the ground. If a copper dragon ever tells you a joke, you'd better laugh. Although incorrigible pranksters, some of the friendliest dragons, copper dragons can also possess relatively thin skin and fondness for treasure that may supersede their naturally gregarious temperament. Copper dragons are especially fond of bards, and some even permanently install one in a luxurious corner of their lair. The dragon considers the bard's company treasure enough. That doesn't mean that the copper dragon won't fight to the death to defend its hoard, and one won't part with something if it in its collection lightly. It is still a dragon after all, but they like a good time and enjoy having friends, as long as those friends know who's boss.
Hmm. That's actually interesting. The copper-esque looking dragon that I saw in the past was name was Relento, and Relentozar's husband, and he would come through and be gregarious like that, where he would be like, I even have a picture of both him and Lentazar from when me and Joanna were in Knightdale, North Carolina, at her house, Hillsborough Lane house that she used to live on. where we had a big fire pit. And there was a photograph. I'll have to dig these out at some point, where you could see Lentazar in one, where you could clearly see the dragon face. I wish I could get photographs like this here of like Burgess and them. But then there was Rolenta, where he came through the fire pit, and I called this Rolenta the dragon takes a bow, and you see him just kind of going, "Yep, yep, I'm great. Yep, da da da." He's like that. So this was actually interesting. The description you gave was very, very similar to his personality. In spirit, I found out those two were coming from more spirit than solid, but these were their personalities. And even though Lentazar was more bluish purple, Relento was more dead on to the Copper Dragon attitude. I believe they even bragged about having hordes somewhere. So at the time, in the ancient times. So I think that's actually quite fascinating that these color variations are actually following some of the patterns that I've actually seen. I shouldn't be a bit surprised because this is actually more disclosure, but yeah, that fit Relento's personality pretty much to a T.
The silver dragons, friendly and cheerful. The mom friend, a little too invested in your personal life, stays up till 2 a.m. watching documentaries.
Hmm.
The most friendly and fond of humanoids of any draconic species. Silver dragons are also one of the few dragon types that enjoy socializing with its own kind and will cheerfully go out of their way to assist a creature in need. A silver dragon could easily be mistaken for a sculpture from its eyes, which resemble pools of mercury, to its wingtips. An adult silver dragon appears to be made of pure iridescent metals. Silver dragons dwell at altitude, preferring a life lived among the clouds. They tend to roost on mountaintops, although their fascination with humanoids means that an abandoned wizard tower or ancient fort is a prized candidate for a lair. In addition to its claws, teeth, and freezing cold breath weapon, the silver dragon has perhaps the most dangerous attack of all the metallic dragons, a paralyzing blast that can incapacitate an entire party in seconds. When it's in its lair, a silver dragon can turn the naturally frigid environment to its advantage, wreathing the area in an impenetrable fog or summoning an icy wind that freezes intruders in their tracks. Of all the metallic dragons, silver dragons are the most friendly to humans in particular, as they find the shortness of their lives and the resultant urgency and zeal they display to be fascinating. Silver dragons love to collect treasure that is not only valuable but steeped in the history of those who made it, prizing the journals of famous heroes or just as highly as a chest of overflowing with rubies and emeralds. They love to dwell within the ruins of great humanoid structures and augment such buildings with their ability to shape clouds and fog into substance as solid as stone. Silver dragons and humans have a very close relationship, and oftentimes a silver dragon will befriend a human king, allowing itself to serve as a protector of the realm.
Hmm. Yeah, I've not really seen too many silver type tone like ones. Like I saw a silvery type one that had maybe like if you saw in between the scales, there was like almost like a aqua blue green flowing in between there, but it was mainly like a silvery metal like tone like that. And the did they do they have the abilities where they could create a fog and hide themselves like that? And everything? Absolutely. I've seen that, but I think a lot of them had the ability to control the elements like that. But this particular one, I did do channeling many years ago of one that was silvery that did actually show a foggy. How can I put this? A foggy layer when they were emerging in the channel sequence. So they were basically trying to tell me that they could hide like even in plain sight. Because the one I saw was fairly big. But yeah, this one, from what I'm seeing in the picture, is very similar to one I saw. Almost had like a whale-like appearance, but in the face, but a little bit like this one, kind of, sort of does. But but this, but yeah, I've run into that before. Could they paralyze like a whole party of people coming after them? Yeah, which I'm actually shocked that a lot of them actually became more extincted because of some of these abilities, and dimensional abilities. Some are dimensionally based like that, but I keep seeing like when you were saying when you were saying about could freeze parties. I'm seeing like this old village, kind of like Helgen was in Skyrim, where it got decimated by Alduin, but with this, I'm seeing something kind of like that, where it was like this old town, and one is hiding within this like dimensional space or in this little pocket with fog and freezing several people coming in. These look like machines to me. This looks to be during the Atlantean period, where the transhumanism thing took over and the black army type, like Terminator looking things were wandering around. So I'm looking, this looks to me, because I'm seeing like a weird emblem on the shoulder that's what tells me Atlantis. But yeah, this looks to be some odd scenario where I'm seeing a silver looking dragon doing this. But it seems this show, they've been mainly just showing me little snippets of the histories, that some of these were actually true based on the D&D lore. But yeah, I didn't see it too much, but I saw that one. The one that I actually saw before I knew any of this was a silvery looking dragon. It had maybe a little blue in him, a little black in him, that was actually surrounded in fog. So that actually makes sense to me.
Gold dragons, done with your shit. Superiority complex, has a degree in philosophy, shares a lot of political posts. Golden dragons are gruff and wholly devoted to the eradication of evil. Gold dragons are not as warm or friendly as their copper, bronze, or brass cousins, though they are fiercely loyal to those they deem to be friends. They particularly like paladins. Clad in shimmering golden scales, a golden dragon's sail-like wings run along the full length of their body, which give the impression of a fish swimming through the air. They have especially wise faces, with frills that give the appearance of whiskers. They are the largest and most powerful of the metallic dragons. Their eyes resemble pools of molten gold. Gold dragons forgo the traditionally dank caves of isolation for idyllic places far removed from prying eyes. Some make their home on mist-shrouded islands or behind sparkling waterfalls. In addition to its fiery breath, a golden dragon can spew forth a wave of gas which weakens its enemies, rendering them unable to fight. Within their lair, the magic of a gold dragon is its strongest, allowing them to glimpse the future, warp the minds of those who enter uninvited, and visit nearby travelers in their dreams. Gold dragons are the most magical of all true dragons and are attuned to the subtle magic of dreams and enchantment, as they are often disinterested in the outside world. While a few gold dragons still travel the wilder world disguised, they rarely reveal their true forms and rarely even converse with other dragons, let alone humanoids. Gold dragons are also unique in that they are the only sort of dragon that will eat their own horde. Gold dragons can eat virtually anything, but particularly enjoy a diet of pearls and gems.
Interesting. Yeah, I just heard Bird just say, yes, we can eat mostly anything. But as far as golden dragon goes, I have not seen a pure gold colored one at all. Doesn't mean they're not around. But the way they describe that dragon actually fits a couple of others that I've actually that are like a yellowy color. I suppose that actually qualifies. But have not really spotted that one this much. I'm just getting validation from others that this personality trait's actually true, where they literally will. I heard they'll eat their wealth and wait in gold, but then they will have nothing to show for it. They're joking about it, saying like then they'll poop it out and they'll actually be able, within their bowels, can actually melt the gold and gems into a like a jeweled turd, kind of like in American Dad, where they fight over that jeweled turd in some episodes of American Dad. They're making fun of whoever this is, whoever this represents. So they obviously, whoever this is has no sense of humor, so they are actually throwing this at whoever this is. I don't know who this is. They do. So they're making fun of, like, oh yeah, they have jeweled turds and things of that nature. So obviously there's something still around that I have not encountered, but they're laughing enough to where, and even Isaac's laughing enough to where they're actually making fun of somebody that's actually true. So I find that hilarious. They said even that jeweled turd representation made them laugh, because that was actually what a gold dragon turd would actually look like if they ate a bunch of gold hoard and it conglomerated into one chunk in there. Like the elephants, like elephants eating coffee beans and then fermenting them, and they come out fermented and usable. It's the same kind of concept. So they're even saying some elephants are dragon types morphed as well. There was an elephant deity that I came across not too long ago called Wamusa, and he was talking about the elephant's graveyard, and I found out that's actually the dragon's graveyard. So it was in Africa. Yeah, so where a lot of the Atlantean war crap happened, but yeah, they're making fun of whoever this is. So they're kind of hinting that this particular type doesn't have a sense of humor. So they're just kind of throwing that out there. Probably because whoever it is can't do anything about it. But I personally have not encountered this one. I'm just going by what they're saying this time, and it feels right to me. So, all I know this one.
Dragon age categories. Wormlings. Their size is small to medium, 5 years or less. Young, large, the size of a medium-sized building is basically what it says. 6 to 100 years old. Adult, huge, a castle to an entire village. 100 to 800 years old. Ancient dragons, gargantuan, the size of cities. 800 years or more.
Hmm. That's actually interesting. They're saying from the different generations down the road, that's actually a true timetable. But in the Atlantean period, there could be some that were tens of thousands of years old from an earlier period, kind of like what the forest people have the Anakam line where they live tens of thousands of years. Now you have the ones that live hundreds of years. Then the same with the dogmen. They're saying the same happened with them. So if there are other current ones, some of them are living that long. But could they live tens of thousands? Possibly. But there's also like some of the tall white elven races. They lived between 600 and 800 years. So that's relatively true, especially here on Earth with all the contaminants and all the weird energy and magnetic fields that messed with them a little bit. If some of them morph into this dimension. So yeah, that feels right to me, actually.
Yep. Okay, well, now that we've gotten through the base type of dragons, we can talk about Bahamut and Tiamat. And I'll let you pick. Do you want to hear about Tiamat or Bahamut first?
We'll go with Bahamut.
Okay, so Bahamut is. Where's the picture I have for Bahamut? This is Bahamut. The metallic dragons worship Bahamut, the platinum dragon who dwells in the seven heavens of Mount Celestia, which is basically where all the good gods live, but often wanders the prime material plane in disguise. He appears as an old man, a kindly sage, dressed in peasant's garb, accompanied by 7 golden canaries, which are actually ancient golden dragons in disguise. Bahamut isn't a god on par with some of the other good aligned deities, but some humanoid clerics still worship him as a paragon of justice and protection. He in turn can grant divine spells to those who worship in his name. While he may stop on occasion for a friendly chat with travelers on the road, seriously, Bahamut might as well be the patron saint of DMs who are fed up with their party murder homebrewing and brutally killing and robbing everyone they meet. Bahamut rarely interferes directly in mortal affairs. He may take an exception, however, when dealing with the machinations of those who follow his dark counterpart Tiamat, the evil queen of dragons. Bahamut is also able to do things outside of the spheres of normal beings, and may have just taken residency as the chief deity of justice, supplanting Tyr as the deity of justice in the D&D pantheon, though it is still up for debate because it hasn't been written on yet. However, most likely Tyr will retain his position. And when we're talking about Tyr, we're literally talking about Norse. Tyr has been just kind of adapted into a justice deity in D&D.
Okay.
Bahamut is sort of a different justice and entity. There's 3 technically. There's Tyr, Torm, and Bahamut.
Tyr and Torm get the most of them. Most paladins are either Tyr or Torm. There are paladins of Bahamut as well. They tend to be dragonborns. Dragonborns are a race that kind of is dragonborn. The dragonborn history is like they were once servants of dragons and now they're no longer servants of dragons, but they're like people that have like dragon look. And yeah, so that's Bahamut.
That's very interesting. I noticed that both this and Skyrim tend to make some of these Norse deities and Sumerian deities into dragons, just like with Akatosh, Alduin, and Parthenax were supposed to be Enki, Enlil, and Anu. And then you have now Bahamut and Tyr. And anyway, I've noticed they like to adapt the Dragonborn to like Odin lineage. They like to like graft that into it a lot.
Well, Tyr isn't a dragon in D&D. He's just Tyr that has been taken from the Norse pantheon and added to the Faerunian pantheon.
Okay. All right.
He drops his war connotation though and picks up like justice and the right way to be and honor basically. But him and Bahamut are both gods of like justice.
Okay.
And recently he was killed, and gods in D&D can die and come back. And he's come back, and like in the interim, Bahamut became like the main justice god for a short time.
Okay, yeah, this actually is interesting because as guardians for real, and dragons seem to have this ability too, where when they get killed, they can reconstitute, kind of like Denevere in the Soul Cairn in the Dawnguard expansion and Skyrim DLC, where they said he could be a few minutes to like a few centuries, and he comes back like a few minutes later. As guardians can do this if they know vampiric contagion is bad, like Enlil or Germain or any of them. What can happen is they will reconstitute later on if they can purge the vampiric garbage out of them. If that's happened. And it's happened to Odin, it happened to one by the name of Wodar, it happened by a few of the Asgardians. Dragons seem to have this ability as well, where if they get the physical killed, they can take a while to reconstitute. This is what it sounded like with Tyr. Then Baphomet became the justice god. But I kept wanting to say Baphomet or like the satanic one, and the dragons were like, no, not the same thing. No.
Bahamut is different. Baphomet does exist in D&D lore as a demon lord.
Yeah, that's how it is. How he is in reality as well. So I kept saying Baphomet to them. They're like, no, Bahamut. They were correct.
It's spelled Bahmut. Bahamut.
Bahamut. Okay. Yeah, they're saying this one's actually legit. So when I kept screwing the two up, they're like, no, they presented both of them accurately in the history in the lore. So it's they kept saying, no, don't screw the two up. They said there is an actual one of their people that is like Bahamut. So I don't know if he's the same name. Is he the same name? Did they just take the name and implant it into the lore? Or did he go by a different name in history like all the other Asgardians and other groups do? They're saying he changed his name and became kind of like a human-looking deity in different mythologies, but there is a Bahamut. So they said that's the name he started out as.
I'm picking up that the demon that goes by that name is doing it as a mockery of him.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting. Yeah, that's why when I kept saying Baphomet, they're like, no. So yeah, they're saying they depicted both of them accurately. All right. Okay. Yeah, so that's really all they gave me on him.
Okay, now we're going to talk about Tiamat. That's Tiamat.
Yeah, okay.
So she's got the Hydra thing going on, and one head is each of the colors of the chromatic dragons.
Mm-hmm.
Tiamat, strangely, isn't as powerful as she used to be. The five-headed evil queen of dragons used to rule Avernus, the first of the 9 hells, ranking amongst other fiendish tyrants as Mammon, Moloch, and Bel. However, recently her rule has been supplanted by a devil named Zariel. If anything, this has made her even angrier than ever before. With 5 massive serpentine heads, each the size of a Tarrasque's heart, the color black, red, white, blue, and green, Tiamat is a mind-shattering sight to behold. Her scaly bulk is large enough to crush entire cities, and the rainbow of deadly fire, lightning, acid, poison, and ice that spew from her gaping mouths can lay waste to entire armies in a matter of seconds. As a lesser deity like Bahamut, Tiamat is able to grant a measure of her power to those dark cultists she deems most worthy of her favor. Though few are, the vast cults of dragon worshippers do evil things in her name, usually with the end goal of releasing her from the fiery plains of Avernus to bring about the destruction of the material plane.
Hmm.
5 chromatic dragons, which her heads resemble, also worship Tiamat and are often seen as extensions of her own being by those humanoids who worship her. Oddly enough, according to ancient legend, legend of dragons, Tiamat and Bahamut were not always bitter enemies as they are today. In earlier days of creation, Tiamat and Bahamut, who both allegedly had a hand in making the world itself, even had a child, Sarbidur, the ruby dragon. Breathe. Then there's like a whole poem thing that I don't want to read because it talks about some dark stuff. Basically, she looks for humanoid servants to serve dragons. She can give a little bit of power to them. Like you can be a cleric of Tiamat, you can be a cleric of Bahamut too if you want to. But she's fully evil. She made a deal with the king of the Hells. She currently resides in the first layer of hell. So the hells, and we'll do an episode on the hells of D&D because they're interesting. There's 9 layers, and it's kind of like a cone. She resides at the door between layer 1, Avernus, where the Blood War happens, to layer 2, which is the one beneath whose name I don't remember at the moment, because most people only ever go to Avernus if they go at all. Basically, everyone who dies with a lawful evil order does end up in the hells. Or if you had like a pact with a devil, because demons and devils are 2 different things in D&D. Demons are evil and chaotic, and devils are evil and lawful in their alignment, and they fight the unending blood war, and that's why they need to keep recruiting people in infernal packs so that they'll have souls to use in the blood war.
Yeah. Okay.
But she guards basically the level cutoff for that first level of hell and the second level of hell. And she's kind of bound there, and it's quite clear that Asmodeus is keeping her and views her more like a tool than anything else. And Asmodeus is like the king of hell down in the 9th layer. But she is trying always to get out, and parts of her have gotten out, and also she can change these heads at will. So if she comes up against people who like are like weak at whatever fire, she'll have all fire heads and whatever. But yeah, so she's like a lower god. She's like the queen, and she's the progenitor of all the chromatic dragons. Like fully, they all like view her as their mother essentially, or their distant mother. But she will eat them just like she'll eat anything else.
Okay, yeah, this is interesting because the Tiamat was really a Sumerian goddess, which was like a mother goddess. So this would be essentially, people call it Maldek, or people call it Marduk, or any of these names they've used of these other deities. Asgard was the original name, and then people applied the name. But in this instance, they're telling me that I got this really gross feeling from this one. I mean, yeah, Draco, a reptilian included in there, but this is more of a witch figure that I had encountered for years. Richie has too, and our family has too. I'm not going to utter the actual name of this person. Just a mocker, I call her Aunt Jemima, but that everybody else knows what name I'm talking about. Isis is another one, but this was like a progenitor type of being, and took the name of several other beings in history, like the Sibyllite cult in Greece, all this other stuff, where where basically it was kind of like a transgender cult where they would try to switch, do the gender switching and all this other stuff. But that aside, this she could morph um, herself into multiple forms, even dragon forms. And this is actually the closest character I've seen in this particular lore to her. Mainly, she would appear as like it's this sexy like Egyptian goddess to people, but in the end, and bearer of wisdom. But in the end, she's gross and disgusting, and also into incestuous, creepy thoughts and things of that nature. I've even gotten her on EVP before, even recently when I was in Nebraska. If people go to the conspiracy sector episode on Starkweather, the second one, the Starkweather Mystery 2, you'll see one on Hartley Street house that I labeled the witch. That is that person's voice. Gross. And this is one of the few galactics I've actually encountered in person in a female form. I'm not going to go completely into that. Just know that this being is evil. No matter what the lore says about this being, she is evil. So through and through, and has made pacts. The real one was one of the women of Atlantis that used the crystal skulls and to communicate with the Orions in the past, and also was the progenitor of the Vril during World War II that channeled the reptilians of Aldebaran. So the Miri Orsic and the Vril Society, and also created vampire cults and crap in the Middle Ages. So this is somebody who is evil. So I neglect to even call her somebody. This is just an evil creature as far as I'm concerned. But this is the vibe I got, and also the opposing one with Baumat. I keep mispronouncing his name. They keep correcting me, but yeah, this is actually true. I can even feel the vibe from this picture that she could shift her head to different heads like that, and also could present like project monsters and do all the stuff like I said the other ones could. So yeah, which have I seen her in a reptilian form like that? Yeah, I have.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the types of dragons. Technically, there's one more. They're Draco Liches, but they're basically a cult dedicated to dragons. Will raise a dragon back as a lich
Okay.
form, but they're not considered like a living dragon anymore, and
More of a zombie,
they
yeah.
have to consume souls to stay alive, just like any other lich.
Yeah, that's
So
like a Draco consuming souls into a nanocore, and that's why they cut the head off because you free the soul energy. Yeah, that's like that. Yeah. Mm. So, what's the next dragon?
that is all of them. Actually, we've gotten through them. I'm going to allow people that I'm not going to ruin stories in D&D for people by giving out specific dragons.
Oh, okay. All right.
Uh, Bahamut and Tiamat show up enough where like you can tell them about their history without like ruining them, but like a lot of other ones are integral into campaigns already.
Oh, okay.
If you're playing through that campaign, I'd be ruining the story of it for you, and that's what D&D
Okay.
is.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. Spoilers. Yeah, yeah. With when you showed Balmet, they actually the other dragons reacted to him like woo. When you showed Tiamat, they all went ugh. So yeah, they actually audibly I heard them going in the background. It's like they regarded Balmet to like almost like a wise old elder, and then the other one as like a demon. So that's how they react. I know goddamn well there is more than just a few of you here. Yeah, they seem to really like this claw. I knew I brought this thing out for a reason today. Even before I knew what the show theme was going to be, I had this sitting out. So uh, uh, they actually are very fond of that piece there. So okay, who's actually going to talk? I don't even know three-fourths of you. So let's see. Hmm. Who's the golden-headed guy? Oh, he looks more like one of the bronze ones. Uh, so I don't know you. I know there's a susceptibility of dragons. I've noticed that actually got nailed by the AI and all that, like what I was saying earlier with the AI components of Atlantis. So I wasn't trusting of dragons for a while, but I'm not threatened by any of you, so I don't feel threatened by any of you. So, uh, and even the forest people seem to be all right with this. So, and I think them. So, all right, friends. Who's the guy with the bronze head? The metal head looking guy. No offense. Oh, you look kind of like exactly like the picture you had. So the bronze dragon. So he looks similar to that. And there's also another bird-looking one too, that has feathers. So and you look more like a. I don't want to say chicken. That's the wrong word. Oh, you guys found it funny when I said you look like a chicken. Okay. Um. Oh, you're not the one talking. Okay. 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 Whoever you are, you're a practical jokester. So, Burgess, are you going to be the one to speak, or is it going to? There is a shitload of them that are looking in here. So, uh, and they're saying that because I made a shitload of the heads out there. Oh, they said, well, you have our heads in your workshop. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll show an image of one of these to everybody. I make these and I have them out in the workshop. There's like a couple dozen sitting on the shelves out there. So they said, you have our heads. Okay, all right. All right, true benevolence and no conflicting agendas. As others one at a time here. Appropriate spirit, so on all sessions and expressions. Yeah, we had Burgess speak on that with the Baldur's Gate episode. So if there's a true benevolent one with no conflicting agendas, please. Metalhead there. Why don't we go with you? Let's see. All right. What is your name? I don't want to keep calling you Metalhead because they keep laughing every time I call you Metalhead. So, um, let me see. Uh, okay. All right. Yeah, it's your name. Mm, let's see. Ro- I can't even pronounce that. So why don't we go with a shorter version of that? It was like this long ass like name. So Ro, Ro, Isaac just shortened it, called him Robbie. Okay. Okay, we'll just go with that. Let's say it was started with an R. It was but it was like this. Well, dragons have these long ass like names that are hard to pronounce. So uh, okay, we'll just go with Robbie. That's fine. I think he was the one communicating with me when you were talking about the bronze dragon. So okay, okay, Robbie. I don't know if you've channeled or anything like that before. Plenty of times. Okay. That's how he talks. Grr, and he moves his jaw in and out as he's talking like that. So yeah. Um, hmm. Oh, God. Mm, that's really strong. Okay. Yeah, can you channel through the crystal, not my brain, please? Okay. That is strong. Yeah. Yes, interesting. Hmm. Yes, your description of us making deals and being traveling companions is entirely accurate. I was showing him a scene from my own history of where I even appeared in some of your colonial periods, thinking humans would be still open for a good deal, a good interchange. But I had been warned that ones that were not hidden would be subsequently fired upon, slaughtered, and or mentally harassed and psionically bombarded like humans do now, or get done now by Orions and other forces. And humans had forgotten their history. I'm actually far younger than that age, so during that time I was more of an adolescent in your colonial period. You would say the from the 1600s onward. I was actually born in your you wouldn't call it the Middle Ages. It would be more of the start of the Renaissance period, and I aged quickly up to an adolescent period, and the aging slowed after that. And the curiosity of the old world intrigued me. Wanted to see if humans would bargain like our ancestors said. We can review our genetic history and know what had happened pre-flood and in the age of our people at their prime. Like you see in Dungeons and Dragons, a lot of very similar layout. In fact, if not the same in a lot of areas. Uh, our own people helped with some of the illustrations and some of the explanations, minus some of the online bargaining. In this instance, we do talk to people and get them to actually strike a deal or bargain that actually, on the other end, sometimes it might be one of our people. Some of our live dragon types aren't as frequent as we would like. We are a very small population because of the last great war. Not great, but the last war that occurred. I could go on rambling, but you can ask me anything you like.
Uh, hmm. What? How do you view your depiction in D&D's lore of your race?
Depiction is pretty accurate, actually, and the explanation is pretty accurate. From what I know of within our genetic memory, we can access the memory of our ancestors. Very much like you have the myths of the elephant that never forgets, the symbol of wisdom. That's actually a dragon type. So that has morphed into the smaller form, mastodon forms, things of that nature. Are dragon types. The one you say, Wamusa, even though he was implanted into Marvel Comics as a fake deity, it was more. He was more of a dragon-esque type. The way they depict the bronze type is actually pretty accurate in look, even though there are a bit of exaggerations like with any animation or anything of that nature in shows. It isn't that far off there. I myself am actually more smooth looking than the picture, but the ones of the past in the time frame that is being depicted looked exactly like that. We've begun to smooth out a little bit as time goes on. Very much. No, Isaac, we are not the same as a brass knob. Thank you, or a bronze knob. Thank you, or like a war club. We began to refine. Like say the picture had more horns and points. My face is slightly smoother than that. Also, we can morph into human form where humans don't have any of these features. So at least some don't, or most don't, but some do. But yes, in this instance, the illustration is quite accurate. Oh, you were muted.
Yeah, I muted because my mom knocked on my door. The So do you think that the storytelling about your people is accurate in the sense that like it depicts them as they would be encountered?
Yes, indeed. Like the scene that I was showing him of part of his own inner circle past, where he was firing at some bad guys, trying to get at one of my people, and one of my people scoffed and said, "I can defend myself, human." And also amongst the ship, that he saw one of my people flying upside against and hovering and trying to make deals. Yes, this is actually accurate the way that our people are depicted, and also within the other colorings that were depicted. That is actually pretty accurate. They might bleed into each other as far as some tendencies go, but those are accurate of the old world, of like pre-flood world, which is what is actually being depicted in your Dungeons and Dragons. Also within your Tartarian period, like your Xanadu and others, they had other beings around, descendant lineages of different beings, like bird being, cat being, dog being, forest people types, monkey people, beings of that nature, like in your show Grimm, where they show the descendant lineages of different races that have chimeric shape-shifting abilities. This is true, and in its truest sense, they have depicted us accurately, yes.
Okay, cool. I that's all I have for questions.
Hmm.
I open the floor to you now.
Hmm. Yes, this it's been a while since I have spoken this way, but our people tend to help with, as I've said, with bargains and deals. As long as we, and this may seem selfish, as long as we get something out of it. Some people might accuse us of looshing like Draco do. Those are the disgusting sulfur-ridden, cat piss-ridden abominations of the sea and the land and the air. Luckily, they cannot fly very far. They look retarded when they try. But they are genetic mutations and the let's just say they're the GMO, like with your food you have the GMO version and you have the pure version. We're the pure versions. They're more the GMO'd poisonous food version that were genetically created by the ones you call the Anunnaki. And in this instance, yeah, that's the history I know. So I know I haven't done this quite often. I'm more the mental influence type. You'd say I'm the influencer in that way, having other, getting other people to be influencers in that way. It's rare that I actually speak this way. So you can tell by my run-on sentences. He said his brain is trying to register individual sentences, and I know humans are more logical that way, but our people tend to ramble. So this is all I have currently. So thank you for having me on. Oh. Yeah, at first he was engaging his energy. That's why he was coming in stronger. I could felt this like pressure, like when the forest people come through, it feels like a thumb on the forehead. Or if they were nearby, it's like that story of this Tibetan monk sitting in a temple, and two forest people walk in, and even in meditative pose, the monk had a hard time with the frequency. It was very powerful. It's the same with dragon. So if they were around, your head would feel like it wants to explode. So it's like that. So, yeah, he's very energetic. It's like, I mean, he wants to ramble. He wants to jump in thoughts and speak in run-on sentences and stuff. That's how he talks. So, and when he talks, his jaw his lower jaw protrudes as he's talking. He kind of almost reminds you of a bird in a way. He kind of walks like this, or his head bobs a little bit like this. It's like that character from Family Guy that has a jaw protruding out like this. He kind of reminds me of that when he talks a little bit, and they thought that was funny when I said that. They thought it was funny when I used the American Dad reference with the glowing turd or the golden turd thing that Roger poops out. They said that was actually a funny way of adding humor there. They're all about humor and all about joking. For a while, I didn't trust dragons because there was one in Granville there in Prescott Valley by the name of Plutus that was very he got AI oriented and he became a real bastard to deal with, and we had to get rid of him after a while. The forest people helped us out with that. I wasn't very trusting after that, but these guys, if you don't feel threatened intuitively by something, it's all right. If it doesn't feel right, don't go with it. If it feels right, go with it. That's usually the rule of thumb there. So I ran even into a mantid recently by the name of Steven. He called himself Steven. He was fine. And so I have to get back into not judging or kind of lumping the races into certain categories. So I got that way because the Draco were around us a lot in the past. So yeah, thank you guys. There was a lot of them here protecting this conversation. It's unreal how many dragon faces I'm seeing of different colors. It was mainly the other type, the metallic type, like the kinder ones that you were talking about is what I'm seeing. I'm not seeing any of the harder colors like the reds and the blacks or anything like that. And they're like that. So when I said that, some of them went time out like that. Don't even bring it up. they connect on a thought. So nope. They said basically shut up. Okay. That's very interesting that this was the topic today, and I pulled out that big claw. I picked it up off the floor and put it on the desk, and then you mentioned what the topic was. I don't know if you have anything else to add, Ryan, or
Been a good show. We'll be back with another interesting one next month. Probably the Nine Hells of Avernus.
oh, all right. That's actually a great year way to. They said Isaac goes great way to start the year off with talking about the 9 layers of hell. Yeah. All right. This is where I will just now close this circle within true benevolence and no conflicting agendas of this moment in time. Thank you all that were here today, and thank you all for watching. Bye bye now.
Bye.